Here it is, the top 10 movies of 2024. I was trying to get this list out a little earlier. I couldn't do it for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, if you guys have been watching the channel, you know, family and myself a little under the weather, but finished it, got the list done, want to make sure that we get it going. Another reason is I didn't get a chance to see everything that I wanted, but I put together a pretty solid list, I think, of the things that I enjoyed over the year. These are my top 10 favorite films, again, of 2024. I'm going to have some honorable mentions and things that I enjoyed this year that in no particular order, just a few of them that I liked that didn't make the list. Some of them came close to the list. Some of them didn't come close to the list, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. A few of those, one of those was Deadpool and Wolverine. Fun, enjoyable movie, big blockbuster film that was fun to shove some popcorn into your face, get some laughs out of, and see the Marvel kind of take the piss with themselves there of the multiverse, and seeing Hugh Jackman back, watching him with the chemistry with Ryan Reynolds. It was a fun way to return to the MCU after a bunch of kind of disappointments, and again, they knew that kind of going into it. The Substance is the other one that seems to be making a lot of people's list. Didn't quite make mine. I really liked this movie a lot. I really liked it a lot. I just didn't love the ending, I think, because I liked the first two parts of this movie so much. I was so locked in. It was like an episode of Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, and the performances all around the board were great. Obviously, Demi Moore stands out. I think she should be nominated. I think that she potentially should win. The directing was fantastic. The only reason it doesn't come in at number 10 for me is just because it was one of these things where the ending was just, I guess it was so graphic, and it was so like it was just sometimes like, oh, did they have to go there? And clearly I am in the minority because people absolutely love the ending, but I just thought the movie was so perfect for the first two parts of it that the ending it knocked it off my list just a little bit. The next one that I would put up there is Inside Out 2, another movie that I really thoroughly enjoyed. It's not easy to make a sequel. It's not easy to make a sequel to a beloved movie. There's a lot of, pun intended, emotions in this movie, and it really, really works. My Old Ass is another one that kept getting recommended to me by other people, and the premise of it, the idea of being able to visit yourself when you're younger, give some advice, what can happen, can anything change? Does it all stay the same? What do you really know about yourself in general? I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really smart, charming, and a good film. Last one on my honorable mention, I think, is September 5th. It's another one that was done in a very kind of old school way. It's just about one night, how the ABC sports team has to maneuver around their sports coverage of the Olympics in 72 and basically cover a worldwide news event when the terrorist attack happens in Munich. All right, so now it's time for the top 10. Again, it's my top 10 favorite movies for me that I enjoyed watching. Either they surprised me, either I was going in with expectations and it met those expectations, either I heard some good things about them and said, all right, let's see if it adds up. Well, that is what number 10 exactly did for me. Coming in at number 10 for me is one of those movies that I heard some things about. I said, all right, let's see if it lives up to this hype, and that is Conclave. It's directed by Edward Berger. It stars the great Ralph Fiennes and has Stanley Tucci in it, John Lithgow. This is a movie that when I first saw, I was like, I don't really know a lot about it. And what it essentially is that the Pope dies and you have his kind of right-hand man in Ralph Fiennes, who, I don't know if I want to do this. I've kind of lost my faith. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to take a time off. Well, Pope dies. He comes back and he basically says, all right, I'm going to run this conclave to find out who is going to be the next Pope. Inside of this is a whole bunch of investigations. Who is the right person for the job? Okay, we're going to vote today. Well, the same vote's not going to be tomorrow because I just found some stuff on this person. And it just keeps throwing you for a loop. And a movie that could be boring, it turns out to be just riveting from the start to the finish. But not only is the directing so well done because it's got to take you from scene to scene of this investigation to understand how are we going to get from A to B. The cinematography in this movie is absolutely breathtaking. The cinematography on this movie is just like a painting. Photographs just come to life where it's like, obviously film as photographs come to life. Yeah, I get it. But it's like a really gorgeous photograph that you can just see in a magazine and it just pops. I couldn't take my eyes off of this movie. It's gorgeous. I highly recommend this one. I think we're going to hear a lot about it during award season. All right, so number 9, Anora. Anora is directed by Sean Baker, also written by Sean Baker. It stars Mikey Madison as the title character of Anora and Mark Edelstein as Ivan. And then one of the main things that everyone's talking about here is the performance by Yura Borisov, who played the character of Igor. I went into it knowing absolutely nothing, except that people were talking about it. And I was like, people were trying to tell me what it was about, and I didn't want to know. As I started watching it, I'm like, oh, this is essentially the version of Pretty Woman that they were going to shoot before it became Pretty Woman. For those of you who didn't know, Pretty Woman was a drama that was called 3000, and it was about a prostitute that had a client one night, was offered $3,000 to be around for a week, and then she was into drugs, and it was like the hard tales of prostitution before Disney got it and turned it into a romantic comedy. So in this version, Anora is in a strip club. She's not a prostitute. She's a dancer, and one day she winds up having a lap dance with Ivan, and they hit it off. So she starts spending more time with him. He's got a lot of money. You don't know exactly why, but then you find out why. And within that time, he says, hey, listen, be my girlfriend for a week. Hang out with me for a week, and I'll give you some money. And I said, oh, this is Pretty Woman. That's where it ends. Because after that, it becomes a full-on comedy. And I wrote this as I was watching it. I tweeted out, I said, this is hilarious, this movie. And someone said, what are you talking about? You obviously missed the whole mark. Now, the whole movie's not hilarious. I would tell you that the ending of the movie, it's definitely a dramedy, but for a good portion of this movie, you laugh. Craziness ensues. Without spoiling anything for you, Anora is in this relationship. She thinks everything's going right, and then guess what? It doesn't. And all of this absolute insanity starts to go down. I thought it was written very well. I thought it blended in a lot of different tones, and that's why I really enjoyed this one at number 9. Number 8. This is one that nobody was talking about. I didn't hear a lot of people. The people that do see this movie are really talking about it like they loved it. And I'm talking about Juror number 2. This is Clint Eastwood's latest. What a cast. You have Nicholas Hoult starring in this movie. You've got Toni Collette, J.K. Simmons, Kiefer Sutherland. The list goes on and on and on and on. The dilemma, the road that this movie takes you on. And it really reminds me of that movie Gone Baby Gone, where the feeling that I have when I was watching that movie, it puts you in a moral position of what would you do? How do you handle that? What would you do if you were on that side of it? And Nicholas Hoult plays this wonderful. He is such a phenomenal actor. Every time the guy shows up, he's such a versatile actor that he can play this position. And what I can tell you about the movie, because if I tell you too much about it, and I don't know if you've seen the trailer. I didn't even watch the trailer. That's another thing. I didn't watch a lot of trailers for this movie. I just kind of went in flying blind. While he's on this case, he learns more about the case. He learns more about himself. He learns more and more things that puts him in a very tough position. It puts the audience in a very tough position. I've also seen a lot of people saying, should there be a sequel to this movie? I hope that there is. I'd like to see where this thing goes next. So I would highly recommend this movie, and that's why it was so high up on my list. All right, number 7 on the list. To me, this is a movie that I was very surprised at how poorly this movie wound up doing overall in the theater. I never thought it was going to do a gangbuster amount of numbers, but I thought it would do enough to say, okay, let's see where this is going to go, and there should be more movies, and it should have more from the legendary director that, of course, is George Miller, and I'm talking about Furiosa. I enjoyed this movie, and why I enjoyed it is because of what George Miller brings to the screen every time he makes one of these movies. This movie absolutely feels like it connects to Fury Road. This is the origin story of Furiosa before she finds Mad Max, before she loses the arm, all of that. And Anya Taylor-Joy does a fantastic job of setting or continuing what Charlize Theron set up with her from the kind of more battle-tested Furiosa from Fury Road. Chris Hemsworth plays an excellent villain. It is not easy to be unrecognizable as Chris Hemsworth, and he does it. Yes, he's got a prosthetic nose that helps, but he's got a great character that he adds to this in Dementis that is just so despicable. But he's able to do it in a way that, yes, he brings some humor to it, but not, again, like I was saying, similar with another movie, that it doesn't suck you out of the film. The visuals, this was a movie that I was so glad that I did see in the theater, because not only the visuals, the sound of this movie, just from the way it starts out with the engines and everything else too, it does set it up. You understand more about Furiosa. You understand where she comes from. You understand this world and how they put it together leading into Mad Max. It does bum me out talking about it, because I don't feel like we're ever going to get another one, at least from George Miller, and who wants to see another Mad Max if it's not from George Miller? But nonetheless, we do have this one, and if you missed it, you should watch it. Do I have a treat for you guys? For fans of Francis Ford Coppola. Who's not a fan of Francis Ford Coppola? Here is a must-have for your collection. The legendary director's classic film, The Conversation, has been released in a stunning new collector's edition celebrating his remarkable legacy. This iconic movie, starring Gene Hackman and directed by Coppola, has been remastered in breathtaking 4K Blu-ray. It's a cinematic masterpiece, and this edition is packed with the treasures for fans and collectors alike. Inside, you'll find an array of exciting extras. There's a small poster with a striking film image and another featuring Hackman playing the saxophone. The set also includes behind-the-scene photos, detailed production notes, and fascinating insights that offer a deeper look into the making of the film. The packaging, it's a showstopper all in itself. Encased in an elegant outer sleeve, the steelbook features stunning artwork by Laurent Duru. It's the kind of design that demands a prime spot on the shelf. One unique touch that does stand out is the inclusion of a cassette tape featuring David Shire's original soundtrack. It's a nostalgic throwback, and while cassette players might be rare these days, it's a charming and unique addition to the set. As for the visuals, the Dolby Vision HDR ensures the film looks better than ever, making it a dream for fans of 4K Blu-rays. Movies like this truly deserve the premium treatment, and this edition delivers on all fronts. Whether you're a seasoned collector or you just love owning physical copies of cinematic history, this edition of The Conversation, it's a must-have. It's a perfect gift or addition to your own collection. It's available now on LionsgateLimited.com. This release is part of an exciting wave of titles from Lionsgate that film lovers won't want to miss. Check it out. I mean, come on. Francis Ford Coppola, man. All right, so number 6, we're going to go with an animated film. Now, this is a movie that I had seen the trailer, and I said, oh, the trailer looks pretty interesting. I don't know how this is going to be. It's a DreamWorks movie, and it is, of course, The Wild Robot. It's directed by Chris Sanders. It stars Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor. And this movie really plays, I think, to everyone. It especially plays to parents, I think. The story of Roz, the robot who is stranded on this island. So she befriends the fox, voiced by Pedro Pascal, and then she becomes a motherly figure to this orphan goose. And she doesn't know what the hell she's doing. It is a metaphor to parenting in general. You don't really know what you're doing at first. You get no clue. But the more and more you work at it, the more and more the bond continues, and the more and more you realize you'll do anything for them. And that is exactly what she does for the Gosling. And there's so much there. There's so many different times that you get kind of choked up. You get goosebumps. You get the tears kind of there, and you see everything that's happening with this movie. It is one of the better movies that I've seen in quite a while, and not just an animated film, just an overall great story. So I was pleasantly surprised with how much I loved The Wild Robot. Coming in at number 5. Now, again, another movie that I don't see enough people talking about, and I wish more people would. And I am, of course, talking about Saturday Night. This is a movie that takes place on the first day, the live taping of the first episode ever of Saturday Night Live. This was 1975, October 11th. It is directed by Jason Reitman. There are so many great performances overall in this because, and you got to understand, I love Saturday Night Live. Especially the early years, I was kind of obsessed with the story of how they all kind of came to be and the way that Lorne Michaels set it up. So I didn't know to the extent of what they really went through that night. I didn't realize how much the network was kind of ultimately thinking that they were going to fail and that we just throw to Carson once it does fail. The old some old rerun episodes, because there's no way that this is going to work, and how they became kind of rock stars and started off. I mean, they're hitting their 50th year here of doing it. But the other really daunting task, besides of what Jason Reitman does with just shooting this thing, and sometimes it feels like one long shot, but it's like to capture that chaos that is happening and capture the vibe. And there's so many things that are just difficult just listening to it and how you're going to shoot that technically. But the performances are what you have to nail, because you got to believe that they're the characters, especially if you're trying to play to people like myself who know these actors, and you're like, well, wait a minute, that seems nothing like so-and-so. So I didn't know enough about Gabriel LaBelle to go, okay, is he just going to be doing a Mike Myers impression of Lorne Michaels, or is it going to actually feel like Lorne Michaels as a young man? It feels like Lorne Michaels as a young man. I will tell you, though, as great as he is, and there's so many great performances in this, Corey Michael Smith steals the show as Chevy Chase. I mean, it is not easy. This is not easy to do. Dylan O'Brien does a great job as Dan Aykroyd. Lamorne Morris does a great job as Garrett Morris. There's so many different performances throughout the whole entire thing that work. And what is done so brilliantly is you can look at the person before they even start speaking, go, oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. But man, to get that essence of Chevy Chase, of what Corey Michael Smith is able to do here, and from the sarcasm to the physicality, everything about it, I'm really bummed that he's not getting buzz for this. I'm really bummed. I thought he has one of the best performances all year as Chevy Chase. So this movie, besides just the performances and everything else they puts together, it was everything that I was hoping it was going to be in this journey, this path that it takes you down. Absolutely loved it. So that's why it comes in at number 5. Number 4, you talk about a surprising movie. A movie that I thought was going to be in the stinker upon stinkers. I hated this trailer. I hated everything about it. I was like, there's no way this movie's going to be good. Why am I even going to this screening? And I'm so glad that I did, because I'm talking about Transformers 1. Now, you got to understand why this is so high up on my list is because I am a big Transformers animated 1986 fan. I loved that movie so much. I didn't love any of the Michael Bay movies. Most people will say, well, the first one's not that bad. I didn't dig it. I didn't like Optimus Prime dancing behind a house and nobody knows that he's there. I didn't like some of the dumb, stupid jokes that were put in there. I didn't like because there's jokes in this one, there's jokes in the 86 one, but it just, again, it's a matter of purpose and does it hit the vibe. When I saw this trailer, I'm like, what is this? Who are they going for? It's like, oh, they're just going to really portray towards little kids. That's all they're not trying to capture the old generation with this. Wrong. This is for everybody who loves animation. This is for everybody who loves Transformers. It is the prequel that you didn't really think you needed, and the way that they put it together, Chris Hemsworth, Brian Tyree Henry, Keegan-Michael Key. There is so much in here that I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed this movie. I just couldn't believe it. From the you talk about really gorgeous animation, great music, emotion. Like, I want to see more inside of this world of this Transformers world, this timeline, continuing on of the way that they kind of set things up. This was a movie that I could not believe I enjoyed as much as I did. So If you haven't seen Transformers 1, go and check it out. It's phenomenal. All right, so let's go top 3. Man, oh man. I think that the last time this guy did a movie, his movie popped into my list. I don't know how high up it was, but I think it was high up. And that was The Northman. So I'm talking about Robert Eggers, and I'm talking about Nosferatu. Now, Nosferatu, I believe, was on my most anticipated list last year. I'm not sure if it was. I have to go back and watch. If it wasn't, it should have been, because the Bram Stoker's Dracula in general, I love the story. I was curious to see what Robert Eggers was going to do that was different from what Francis Ford Coppola did. And he does exactly what you think Robert Eggers would do. He tells the story. Of course, there's familiar beats in it because it's Bram Stoker's Dracula. But he does it in a way that it almost feels like it's an original Robert Eggers story because of the way that he shoots film, the way that he tells his stories. Lily Rose Depp, who I think took the place of Anya Taylor-Joy, who was supposed to play this role in general, this is her coming out party. This is the one where you're like, oh, okay, she has really shown that she's got the goods. She is so good in this role, and following in the footsteps of, Winona Ryder, you have to see like, okay, what can you bring to this role? And she does it, and then some, playing the role of Ellen Hutter, and just putting you in this position of saying, oh, this is who Nosferatu, this is who the Count is really vying for. Do you understand why? And you do. You get it from the way that she brings it across. And her husband, again, as I mentioned him earlier, is Nicholas Hoult, who is taking the role of, again, if I'm comparing it to the Francis Ford Coppola movie, but it's obviously the story that if you know Bram Stoker's Dracula. But Keanu Reeves played this role in the Coppola version, but Nicholas Hoult, again, I got to say the same thing I said beforehand. The guy is just such a solid actor, and has to be in this role to say, she goes, don't go. Stuff's going to go down if you do. Please don't go. Stay with me. He doesn't listen. He goes. Count Orlok basically seduces, I don't know if that's the word, but manipulates, probably better, and finds his way to get back to his obsession. You can call it true love, but obsession. And Bill Skarsgård playing Count Orlok, who is just unrecognizable every time he does a villain like this, whether it is Pennywise, whether it is from John Wick. The guy knows how to play villains. He knows how to play menacing. He's got a really creepy accent. Aaron Taylor Johnson, I'm glad that he was able to do this, because I know he's getting a lot of slack for Craven. He's not getting slack. The movie's getting slack, because he's another one who's a really great actor. But you can see how great of an actor he is when he shines in this. Willem Dafoe is essentially Van Helsing in this. He's another one that he doesn't. The role is different. He gets to play the kind of eccentric characters that he does so very well. But it's Robert Eggers again who becomes the star of his movies when he's one of those directors. There's like a handful of directors that when you got a new movie coming out from so and so, what's it going to be? You just want to see it because he's helming it. And that's what Nosferatu is. So that's why it's so high up on my list. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a great new take. It's not a romantic look at vampires. It is creepy. It is gross. And it is horrifying. And it's pretty damn great. All right, my number 2 of 2024. Now, this was a movie that I was looking forward to. I was excited about this one. And I love the director. I love the artist. I love the actors in it. And that is James Mangold's A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic. Timothy Chalamet as Bob Dylan, Edward Norton as Pete Seeger, Elle Fanning as Sylvie Russo, Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. This is a movie that I think that some people, if you're looking to really dive into the whole entire history of Bob Dylan, then maybe you get upset, but I knew that it wasn't really what it was. It was like the start of Dylan, and seeing his transition from falling into this folk music and understanding making folk music cool, but then understanding that he wanted to do more with that and change it up and not just be one type of artist, and seeing the dilemma that he's got to go in with pleasing certain people and not pleasing other people, not caring about pleasing other people, the brilliance of his music, seeing the selfishness, and being also showing that this is one of those movies that it does, like, you could see where the artist was probably involved, and it said, yeah, you gotta leave it and make sure that's exactly who I am, because that's who he was. That's who he was. He was exactly like that. He was effing around on his girlfriends. They showed the relationship with Baez, and how I didn't know enough about that relationship, and the show, like, where she was when he came on the scene, to eventually showing like their relationship and the things that they went through, and the stuff that they really kind of dove deep into, the relationship with Sylvie and Elle Fanning, who I thought was really, again, I know that I'm using this word quite often in this video, but vulnerable, and showing like she was like the real kind of grounded force in this entire thing, with all this lunacy that was going on at that time, and showing the brilliance of who Bob Dylan was, and the complications of who he was, and showing what he wanted to do, and the love for the music and the love for the lyrics. And I'm so glad that James Mangold, as I just mentioned before, where I was glad that, you had this movie that Aaron Taylor Johnson was able to do, to show like how talented he was. Same thing with James Mangold. I think that, he did the last Indiana Jones movie. This business is a what have you done for me lately business. And I'm so glad that this is what he has done for us lately, because this is a movie that is just, it's solid. It is solid. And like, look, I love Bob Dylan. I love listening to the music. So when I can sit there and listen to Bob's music while it's integral to the actual storytelling, you're going to win me over. I think that Bob Dylan fans are really going to enjoy this movie, have enjoyed it. I took my uncle to see this, and he's a major Bob Dylan fan, and he looked like it was Christmas Day when he was done seeing it. Like he knew so much about it, and he was telling me little tidbits and stuff that he's like, well, that actually happened there at this point. That happened in London, but I'm glad they brought it in there because it was relevant to this. So they did the research to it, but Timothée Chalamet should win the Oscar for this. He really should. You talk about a special type of performer, a special kind of actor. Yes, Edward Norton, who is brilliant in the supporting role. Timothée Chalamet, to be able to not only to sing like Bob Dylan, it is not an easy task at all, right? Without it sounding like some kind of like me, hey, I'm doing a Zen and I'm tired of Dan of Ham. It's you're doing a stupid impression. When you're actually doing it and bringing it from the core, because that's who you are while you're doing this, and then you have to talk like that and not sound like it's an impression, and make me believe that that's who you are. That's what this guy does. Timothée Chalamet is a next level type of performer. You're going to see him for a long time to come, because he's that damn good, and he knows what he's doing, and his talent has taken him to the right places. This is the rise of an all-time great. I'm saying that right now. I think Timothée Chalamet is going to be an all-time great actor. The guy, we're witnessing him in his early stages. He's not even in his prime yet. He's not even in his prime yet. This is an all-time great actor. So number 2 is a complete unknown. All right. So number 1, this is, if you follow my channel and you are a frequent member of the live show, or you follow anything that I talk about here, you're going to know my number 1. If you are brand new and you just found this video, well, first of all, hit that subscribe button. Then you might not know, but everybody can pretty much guess, and that is Dune 2. Just mentioned Timothée Chalamet. Well, he's back again, and this time in the second half to a big epic film by Denis Villeneuve, and this is an absolute masterpiece. I haven't used that word in a very long time. I never really like to use it. I think it's an overused word. I think people just throw it out there for the hell of it, and I am using it because I think the movie deserves it. I will say that I think Dune 1 and Dune 2 is one huge movie overall, but Dune Part 2 just took me to a place that I just have not felt while watching movies in a very long time. Got to start, as I mentioned, when it comes to directors, how there are certain directors that when they make a movie, you just want to see it no matter what it is. Denis Villeneuve was able to do that with Dune, because Dune is a property that, it is essentially the reason Star Wars exists, right? A lot of these different things. Frank Herbert's book and what he did set the stage for many science fiction stories down the line, but the movies never really did anything. The David Lynch movie, some people dig it, but overall didn't really do much into the pop culture zeitgeist, right? Nobody really talked about it as much until Dune Part 1 came out, and what was accomplished there from the Hans Zimmer score. I talked about cinematography earlier with Conclave. This is another one. The cinematography in this one and the way that it is just beautifully shot. You believe every single thing that is happening on this other planet. And the epic, this is the definition of kind of an epic tale, right? The chemistry between Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya in this one, Paul Atreides kind of coming to his purpose of what he has to do in this, the idea of what a prophet can be, a Messiah can be. And what I also like about it is they kind of like dump you on your head, where you think like certain things are going to happen, and there are certain things that he says that he pretty much tells you what's going to happen and tells you why he shouldn't do this and why he shouldn't do that, and it's like nobody is like, there's no black and white in this. And as I mentioned, the chemistry between Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet is what sells this, because both Chani and Paul Atreides, you got to believe their relationship. You do, as he starts off in the beginning of this, where he's still trying to gain the trust, and then he eventually becomes the savior of it all. There's so many different standouts. Rebecca Ferguson is just absolutely mesmerizing, terrifying as Jessica. Austin Butler as Fade. Oh my God. One of the best villains in recent movie history. Christopher Walken as the Emperor. People were like, well, it's going to be Christopher Walken. Some people had a problem that it was Christopher Walken. It's not his fault. It's Christopher Walken. So when he shows up, he just wants to be. And let him be. Because he, I think, carried that essence of what the Emperor is. Florence Pugh playing the princess. There was a lot of just amazing performances. So about Anya Taylor-Joy again shows up in this, and the music, the Hans Zimmer music, I really hope that it wins, gets nominated. The direction of this, I think that in Golden Globes, right? I know Critics' Choice they recognized Denis, and they need to recognize him for the Oscars, because this is a task all in itself to direct this movie. It is one of my favorite movies of the last 5 years. More, not just 2024. It makes me excited for future Dune movies. I'm enjoying the TV show. I want to see where, I'm only about 2 or 3 episodes in. I want to see where it goes, but I like being in that world. And I was not a Dune 1984 fan. I didn't even care when they announced this movie. But I am now a massive Dune fan because of both of these films. So that's it, man. That's my list. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, yeah, I can't believe that's on your list. Like I said, this is my favorite movies of 2024. I'm very curious to hear your favorite ones. Please put them in there. Let me know. Which ones do you think will be on there for me when I see them? I know The Brutalist is one that everybody's talking about. I didn't get a chance to see that one yet. I missed The Brutalist. So I probably, might down the line say, oh, you know what? That probably would have made my list. But at the time of this taping, haven't seen it yet. So put your thoughts in there. Let me know what you think. Thanks for joining me here today. I appreciate you. And we'll see you really soon with my top 10 anticipated movies of 2025. All right, everybody. See you later.